You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 26 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be sharing a recording that we did at our noon meeting. Rye was generous enough and courageous enough to share his first step with the group this week, and we recorded the entire meeting. I've been talking on the podcast for the past few weeks about this episode and what it entails in order to get this recording done. Normally, I record on my own personal Zoom link, and to be using an actual meeting to do the recording, we had to make sure well in advance that people knew that the meeting was going to be recorded and that we had permission from everyone that spoke on the recording to use their voice on the podcast. We did put a pause towards the end of the meeting to allow other people to make their shares that were kept private, just in the meeting only and not to be used here on the podcast. Normally during our meetings, we have the record feature locked out, so only the owner of the Zoom account is able to unlock that feature. We do that for safety purposes, but I did get permission from the group to unlock the record feature in order to share this amazing story. So I'm going to keep the comments at the beginning and end of this episode pretty brief so I can get the podcast out in a timely manner. I'm going to be going camping this week. I have the week off of work and doing some relaxing. Up front here, I wanted to share a reading from the first step in the Green Book. So the first step of Sex Addicts Anonymous is, we admitted we were powerless over addictive sexual behavior, that our lives had become unmanageable. And this is from the bottom of page 24 and the top of page 25. In some SAA groups, members share their first step at a meeting. With help from our sponsor and others in the group, we select the most important parts of our story to tell. These include the most significant examples of our powerlessness and the worst moments of unmanageability, no matter how much shame we may feel about them. We also share critical points in our addiction story, illustrating the progression of our disease. We tell how we finally sought help and what it was like to recognize our powerlessness and unmanageability. Our sponsor can also help us decide beforehand whether certain details of our story are too intense to be shared with the group. The group needs to make sure that we are supported before and after a first step presentation. The group needs to make sure that we are supported before and after a step presentation. Sharing our story in a group can bring up intense feelings. We feel very vulnerable, but it can also break the bonds of shame and isolation, deepen the process of healing, and increase our commitment to recovery. Sharing a first step in a group creates an opportunity to connect with other members. We allow ourselves to be known when we take this risk, and when we hear others share their first steps with us, we are reminded of similar aspects of our own addiction. Experiencing the common bond of our powerlessness promotes the healing of every member. Yeah, this reading is so true, so powerful. Being able to share your first step at a group. I've done 2 formal first step presentations. My initial one and one a few years afterwards, where I added more to my story and eliminated quite a few paragraphs to make time for the additional stuff. But it's not a requirement, but being able to share that type of stuff with a group allows the group members to be able to know a person better and creates a bond. It's an amazing experience. And so not everyone gets to witness a first step presentation. We're pretty lucky at our noon meetings. We've been getting quite a few of them. And we wanted to share what it was like to sit in on a meeting. So if you haven't been to a meeting, this should be an eye-opening experience. One of the things that's kind of fun about this recording, listening back to it, is the cacophony of Zoom, people being on mute. I tried to edit out a couple of those moments, but saying the Serenity Prayer is quite challenging with 50 people on Zoom. One of the things this meeting does that I haven't really seen done at other meetings is, with having 50 people on the call, we don't go around the room. Like in a physical room, it's pretty easy to go around a circle and announce our names and that we're sex addicts. But in the Zoom format, it becomes quite difficult. So what we've done is this opportunity for everyone to announce their name and their status all at once, and it creates this loud noise but it's amazing. We toyed with the idea of just not doing announcements or finding a way that would work, and this one just seems to have stuck with this group. It's kind of fun. Sometimes you're able to pick out and hear voices. Other times it's just this loud mass of voices. So anyway, enough of my blabbing. It's time to get on to the conversation for this week, which is the recording from our noon group. And once again, I'm so grateful that Rye stepped up to allow his first step to be recorded. At this meeting, you may recognize some of the voices, including John M., who was the guest on episode number 24. And without further ado, here it is.
Welcome to the noon Zoom Room Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting. My name is John. I'm a sex addict and your secretary for this meeting. This is a closed men's meeting open to any adult 18 or over who has a desire to stop their compulsive sexual behaviors. When you're not speaking, and for the safety of the group, please stay attentive, avoid cell phone use, texting, and minimize distracting movements such as eating. Mute your microphone so that any background noise will not disturb the speaker. For the sake of community, please use your video if you are able. Lastly, if you receive an inappropriate direct message from anyone, please send a message to the host or co-hosts so they can take care of it. In a face-to-face meeting, it is appropriate to thank each speaker after their share. In the Zoom room, we borrow the applause sign from American Sign Language as an alternate way of expressing our gratitude. Let's begin with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Okay. Would Chris C., would you please read the opening?
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a sex addict. SAA opening. SAA is a fellowship of people who share our experience, strength, and hope with each other so that we may overcome sexual addiction and help others to recover from sexual addiction or dependency. Membership is open to all who share a desire to stop compulsive sexual behavior. While we all strive for sexual sobriety, its achievement is not a requirement for attendance or participation. Our common goals are to become sexually healthy and to help other sex addicts achieve freedom from compulsive sexual behavior. SAA is supported through voluntary contributions from members. SAA is not affiliated with any other 12-step program, nor are we part of any other organization. We do not support, endorse, or oppose outside causes or issues. SAA is a spiritual program based on the principles and traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are grateful to AA for this gift, which makes our own recovery possible.
Thanks, Chris. Would we please have Todd B. read how it works, including a separate Reading by David P. of the 12 Steps.
I'm Todd. I'm a sex addict. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. They cannot develop a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. There are those, too, who suffer from serious emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. And some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with sexual addiction, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked God's protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery.
The 12 Steps of Sex Addicts Anonymous. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over addictive sexual behavior, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other sex addicts and to practice these principles in all areas of our lives.
Many of us exclaim, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guidelines to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. 1, we were sexually addicted and could not manage our lives. 2, that probably no human being could have relieved our addiction. And 3, that God could and would if God saw it.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, David. Rudy, would you please read traditions 4, 5, and 6?
Traditions 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or SAA as a whole. Tradition 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the sex addict who still suffers. Tradition 6. An SAA group ought to never endorse, finance, or lend the SAA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose.
Thanks, Rudy. And Ryan B., would you please read the abstinence statement?
Abstinence statement. Our primary purpose is to abstain from sexually compulsive behavior and help others to achieve abstinence. In line with this purpose, we feel that a brief statement regarding the meaning of abstinence is in order. First, we define abstinence in terms of behavior, rather than mental states. We do not focus our efforts upon abstaining from mental lust, but from compulsive behavior. Just as AA focuses on the need to stop the behavior of drinking, and as OA focuses on compulsive eating as a point of abstinence, so SAA focuses on compulsive sexual acting out. The lust of the mind may take years to drain away as one works the 12 steps of recovery. Abstinence from the destructive and addictive behaviors, however, can begin today, and is the basic foundation upon which all subsequent personal growth depends. Progress, rather than perfection, is the atmosphere for growth that we seek to promote. Secondly, abstinence will be different for each member of SAA, depending upon what behaviors are compulsive and lead to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Some addicts can engage in sexual behaviors from which other addicts find they must abstain. In SAA, we leave the choice up to the individual. Finally, abstinence does not imply the complete elimination of sexuality from the addict's life, whether married, partnered, or single. Rather, it lays the foundation for learning a new approach to the experience of sex and relationships, which is non-compulsive and non-destructive. Such an approach is possible to all who earnestly desire it.
Thank you. If you are new to Sex Addicts Anonymous or attending this meeting for the first time, we invite you to introduce yourself at this time by first name only. Okay. It is the custom of this group to ask if there are any newcomers. A newcomer is someone with less than 30 days of sexual sobriety as defined by abstinence from inner circle behaviors. This is not done to embarrass you, but so that we can offer our support in your recovery and perhaps talk with you after the meeting. Are there any newcomers here today?
This is David P. I'm a newcomer.
Joe, and I'm a sex addict and a newcomer.
This is Arnold. I'm a sex addict and a newcomer.
Hi, my name is Tim, and I'm at the meeting.
I'm Spencer. I'm Spencer. I'm a sex addict and a newcomer.
Hey, Spencer. Go ahead, John.
I'm John. I'm a newcomer.
Welcome. Anyone else?
Joe, I'm a newcomer.
Hey, Joe. We are really glad that you are all here. Are there any sobriety birthdays to acknowledge that have occurred since our last meeting?
John, hey, this is David P. Ben V just sent me a message asking that I announce that he's had 11 months of sobriety.
All right.
My name's Todd. I'm a sex addict. Yesterday was 8 weeks.
My name's James. I'm a sex addict. Today is 180 days.
Congratulations. My name is John. I'm a sex addict, and the 6th was 30 months.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm a sex addict, and today is 3 months.
Lee?
Hey, I'm Lee. I'm one of you, and today is 7 months.
I see you in the chat, David L. Congratulations on 90 days. All right, it's now time for introductions. My name is John, and I'm a sex addict. Since we have 49 people in the room, we're going to go with the chaos method and all introduce ourselves online at the same time at the count of 3. So please go ahead and unmute your microphones. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason. I'm a sex addict.
Recovering sex addict.
Thanks all. Now don't forget to go back on mute. In most weeks, the format of this meeting is a selected reading followed by general sharing. Our business meeting is scheduled for the first meeting of the month out of each of the 6 days of meetings, Sunday through Friday. Once per month, in a week without a business meeting, we may hear a first step presentation instead of a selected reading. First step presentations can be scheduled with your sponsor and the meeting secretary. If there is no first step presentation scheduled, the group may hear from a speaker with at least 1 year of sobriety to share their experience, strength, and hope. Today, there is a first step, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason T.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason, and I am a sex addict. And we are so honored to have Rye give his first step. I have the first step presentation reading that I'm going to read here at the beginning here, and then turn it over to Rye. Rye, you are about to share your first step with us. We acknowledge and affirm your courage in taking this step. We would like to clarify some things about this experience for each of us. The primary purpose of your formal first step presentation is to aid you in your program of recovery. It need not be done to please the group or to gain status. There is no right or wrong way to present a first step. Any effort you make is legitimate. Here are some suggestions which others have found helpful. We encourage you to be specific about your behaviors and to speak from your heart. This will help you get in touch with the pain and reality of your addiction. Try not to bury yourself in shame or victimhood. Let us hear you, not your addict, speaking. The group has the responsibility to love, care for, and accept you. The members will avoid judging, giving advice, or taking care of you. Some members may become triggered and may leave the room. Do not take this personally, nor as a reflection of the quality of your share. We will let you know when 5 minutes of your time remain. This will give you time to complete your presentation and allow time for members to share their impressions of your first step. Remember that we are here for you. May God grant you serenity.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, my name is Ryan, and I'm a recovering sex addict. This isn't my first step, and it won't be my last. Before I begin, I would like to thank everyone in attendance for being here to show support. As I share, I am open for questions as we go along. If I feel that an answer will reveal itself in the presentation, I will state as such. I'm also open to comments, reflections, and feedback at the end of the presentation. Full disclosure, I'm doing this step for multiple SAA meetings. For my local group, I ask to bear with me as I retell the first part of my story again. For those that are hearing my first step for the first time, I ask you to show patience and understanding as I try my best to give this best snapshot of my journey to recovery. I will do my best to go as much as a chronological order as I can, but I'm typing this from the heart without overthinking too much. I will also do my best to try and not trigger anyone. I plan on being honest without oversharing and not being too explicit. With that, let me start off on my pre-adolescent years. Before I hit puberty, I coped with the stresses of having 2 alcoholic parents via urinating and soiling myself on purpose. I think the technical terms are enuresis and incorporesis. I started these behaviors when I was around 4 and would continue to indulge in them well into my teenage years. I believe this is how I started to learn how to hide things from my family and learning to lie about behaviors that had caused me great shame. Ironic, I also got a rush when I was engaging in these behaviors. A lot of times I was able to pass these bad habits as accidents, but when the adults started to question me more about it, I learned that I couldn't keep using the same lie over and over again. I was better at concealing my addiction to enuresis and incorporesis when I was a teenager, but eventually stopped after I started running out of boxers to wear. There have been times in my adulthood that I have revisited these old behaviors, and I am tempted present day to engage in these actions due to my sobriety from inner circle behaviors. From the age of 5 to the age of 13, I was at in-home daycare. During those 8 years, I did a lot of predatory-like things, but disguised those actions as boys being boys behaviors. These behaviors including play spanking, the pantsing, wedgies, dry humping, and so on. I was fascinated and transfixed when other kids got a spanking from the babysitter. I was always well behaved and I was never spanked, but I did ask to be spanked when I was 12 because I was curious. But the babysitter gently and thankfully turned me down. When I first discovered masturbation, I had frequent fantasies of kids getting spanked and diaper punished. From the ages of 11 to 14, I suspected that I was different. At first, I thought I was gay. My mom freaked out when I first suggested that. But I knew that I was also attracted to girls my age too, so it didn't make sense to me. Of course, at the time, I didn't know that bisexuality was a real thing. When exploring my sexuality, my obsession was on spanking fantasies, and when I discovered adult pornography for the first time, I primarily watched spanking videos. There is a time span during those years that I do not remember or have any memory of watching adult porn videos that had sexual intercourse, but I know for sure that I must have. In particular, the transition phase between my normal adult porn use into the darker side of pornography is a total blank for me. From the ages of 16 to 19 were arguably the darkest times of my life. I had a full-blown addiction to child pornography. During that time period, file sharing software was all the rage, and it was hardly regulated or controlled. I lost hours searching for videos, most were bogus files, but the hunt and the thrill I got from finding a legit video is something I cannot put into words. My ritual was getting up early, searching for videos to download, and then get the downloading process started, then leave for school hoping that the videos would be downloaded by the time I returned home. Slow internet and limited file shares were the reason why it took so long. I tried many times to stop, but I was completely powerless over it. Even when I got caught by my sister and my parents found out after that, I still couldn't stop. I would go through periods where I would delete everything only to re-download everything again, sometimes as soon as the same day I deleted them. I remember every child porn video I ever watched, and it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that those kids in those videos were victims of mine. From the videos, I have 18 victims, and from the pictures that I would collect, I don't know the exact number, but probably 30 or 50 more. From the ages of 18 to 20, I had my first girlfriend, and I quit all child porn use for 13 months. Then I relapsed, and that was the first time I got help. I ended up at a place where they specialize in rehabilitating sex offenders, where I credit them for saving my life. I was committed to therapy for a year, but then things got better for me, so I left. That would be a continuous pattern for me. I would get in a crisis, I would seek help, I would feel better, then I would quit. From the ages of 23 to 25, I was in a toxic pseudo relationship with a young woman who had characteristics of a child, which triggered my fantasies. I would spend money on her, and in exchange, she gave me attention. I also helped raise her 1-year-old daughter, with whom I used as an excuse to stay in the toxic relationship. I will state that I've never sexually abused any child. As the times went on, the toxic pseudo relationship, I violated more of this young woman's boundaries and took advantage of her need for money by paying her to ship for me and let me take pictures of her and making her do this in front of her children. I also frequently grabbed and rubbed on her without consent, even one time forcing a kiss on her. I put this woman and my addiction over my friends and family. From the ages of 22 to 24, I tried leaving this toxic relationship by getting into a real relationship with a woman that would become the mother of my child. However, outside of a 3-week period where our daughter was born and where my dad passed away, I was rarely ever a good partner. I was still having this toxic relationship with this other woman, which was essentially an emotional affair. I had a sexual affair with a second woman that was barely 18 and still in high school. If that weren't bad enough, I emotionally and verbally abused the mother of my child as well. Ironically, I ended up breaking up with her because I didn't want to give up the pornography addiction, sexual fantasies of children, and I wanted to have sex with other women and not be chained down. From the ages of 24 to 25, I engaged in my heaviest acting out behavior since I was 19. I was spending anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day looking, collecting, and masquerading to pornography or to non-pornographic videos and pictures of children. I neglected my duties as a father many times so I could engage in the sex addiction, sometimes either leaving my daughter with my mom, a lot of times not even asking her or thanking her to do so, or leaving my daughter to fend for herself while I was in sexual fantasy. At the age of 25, after months of binging on acting out behaviors, I decided that I wanted to win back the heart of the mother of my child. I knew that I had to get into recovery to do that. I put all my recovery eggs into that basket. However, I had done too much damage to my daughter's mom, and she wouldn't give me another chance. I was defeated and heartbroken. I would spend the rest of that year in 2015 in addictive behaviors. At the end of 2015, right before New Year's Day, I made a promise to myself that I was going to go to my 2 local SAA meetings and go to therapy 2 times a week for all of 2016. I pledged that I was going to do this no matter how bad things got for me, recovery and addiction-wise. I achieved that goal and set the same goal for 2017 and beyond. I did that for 5 years, but I was still lying to myself about my sobriety. From 2016 to 2020, I struggled what to put into my circles, and I felt guilty about recovery. I felt guilty about the recovery chips I was collecting. I was spending a lot of time sexually fantasizing about children and using non-pornographic images via social media and file sharing, photo sharing sites. It was an unmanageable obsession, and I couldn't stop unless I achieved climax. I argued and fooled myself into thinking that since I wasn't viewing child pornography, that I was sober. But I didn't feel sober. I was miserable and remorseful. However, I wasn't strong enough to put sexual fantasies of children in my inner circle. So I kept being miserable and living the lie. It wasn't until midway through 2020 when my life changed forever, which would lead to a downward spiral that would shatter all denial about my fake sobriety. On August 13th, 2020, the mother of my child died unexpectedly from complications of a seizure at the age of 28. She was engaged to be married to another man and was 6 months pregnant with their baby. The baby did not survive. We weren't on the best of terms when she died, and I didn't get a chance to tell her how happy I was that she was pregnant, my daughter told me. And despite not being together, I still loved her very much. I was devastated beyond belief, and on top of that, I became a single parent overnight. I thought I could handle everything, but I was very wrong. For the next 4 months, I engaged in a lot of sexual fantasies of children, using the mediums that I had been accustomed to. However, I stayed away from the one thing that I vowed I would never do again, which was watch child pornography. Then, on the week of Christmas, I rediscovered an old acting out website, and I relapsed by collecting and masturbating to child pornography for the first time in over 10 years. I had set a low bar for sobriety, and I couldn't even meet that. I turned in my chip at the beginning of the new year and made a vow to recommit to recovery. My sobriety only lasted a couple of weeks, and then I went on a week-long binge of searching, collecting, and masturbating to child pornography. I was in a really dark place. In a desperate attempt to get some clean time in, I committed myself to a mental health stabilization center for 5 days. The stay was very beneficial, and afterwards, I got a sponsor, and my sobriety lasted a little over 30 days. I even got a 30-day chip in an SAA meeting, but it eventually came crashing down again, and I went on another week-long acting out binge on child pornography. My sponsor told me that I needed to get my sobriety up and that I needed to do 90 meetings in 90 days, telling me that I need to do telemeetings and online meetings to accomplish this feat. I was very resentful at first, but I did some soul searching, and coupled between certain events in my life, I decided to give online meetings a shot. Around that same time period, I had gotten a new psychiatrist. In an attempt to get him familiar with me and my story, I gave him a copy of my 4th step. I was working the steps while constantly acting out. The psychiatrist, in his professional opinion, thought my story was an immediate safety concern for my daughter and reported me to DHS. The child protection worker was nice enough, and we had an open and honest conversation about my sexual attraction to children. I told her that I was going to therapy twice a week and that both therapists have extensive experience with people who are sexually attracted to children, that I'm going to SAA meetings 4 to 5 times a week now and have a sponsor and a strong support system. I also told her that I have told all the right people close to my daughter's life about my sexual attraction to children, so I can be held accountable by them too. And not to mention that my daughter sees her family and friends on a regular basis. At the end of the meeting, the caseworker told me I was doing all the right things and that this complaint is unsubstantiated and that I had nothing to worry about. After the meeting with the caseworker, I had an epiphany which changed everything in my life. The epiphany was about things that my family members and friends were trying to tell me for a long time. 1, I am a good person. 2, I'm a good father. And 3, I'm worthy of being loved. The new belief system gave me the strength to do what should have been done from the very beginning, but I was too scared and unwilling to do so, and I was put any and all sexual fantasies of children in the inner circle. Adult pornography I still have in my middle circle. Exercise, recovery, therapy, journaling, etc. are in my outer circle. I'm living my best life, and I have the program to thank for that. Currently, now that I have turned the addiction over to the program and have faith in the process of recovery, I'm becoming the best version of myself. As long as I do all the right things, the pieces will fall into all the right places. In essence, I stopped doing things my way, and I let the steps and the principles of the program take over my life. My journey has only just begun, and I'm excited for where the future holds. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rye, for your courage and honesty in sharing your first step with us. This meeting is now open for those who wish to offer their appreciation or shares in support of this important step. And we're going to start that off with Jason T.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason and I'm a sex addict. And Rye, damn, that was awesome. Inspirational, hard to listen to at times, but man, you know that I identify with a lot of your story. A couple of the things that jumped out at me from the beginning, in childhood, boys being boys and being curious about other children and stuff at that age, that definitely happened for me. The file sharing services, back in the slow internet days, I really remember that, and I got myself into a lot of trouble with that as well. The identifying I never abused any children firsthand, but by partaking in child pornography, I in turn help feed a system that causes damage. I'm currently working on steps 8 and 9 and have put down the victims and people that are involved in child pornography in there as part of my amends, and I'm needing to do some work on that. But the thing that you really mentioned that I haven't really heard in meetings that often with people that have issues with child pornography is sexualizing non-sexual images of children. And I have been guilty of doing that on social media and things like that, and looking for a hit. And it's not exclusively for children for me, but for any type of person sexualizing a non-sexual image. But your first step is absolutely amazing and inspirational. I remember when you came into the rooms, and so grateful that you're here and making a positive change, and so grateful that you were able to share this not only with the 50 people that are here on this meeting, but with the rest of the podcast community. It takes a lot of guts that I did not have when I recorded my own story. So congratulations to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, my name is John, and I'm a sex addict. Rye, brother, I'm so proud of you. Putting it all out there, and it reminds me of my journey of 20 years of trying to stop, and having some success and then having some failure, having some success and having some failure, and not feeling worthy of love. Not feeling worthy of being called a good person or a good father. And it's that dual life, that really came through in your share, in your story. And I just want to let you know you've done us a tremendous service. You're doing the community a tremendous service, and I really honor you for that. Next up, we have Langston.
Hey everyone, Langston here, Griffith Montgomery sex addict. Yeah, right. Really inspirational. I did not know we were doing a step share today. So what a pleasant surprise. And hearing your story, I also I haven't done, or my addiction just happened not to manifest itself into watching child pornography, but I did participate in paying for sex. And so I'm doing my step 9 too. And I'm, for me, I feel it's important to make an amends, perhaps an indirect amends, because that industry does lend itself to other hurtful things to human beings, and I took a part in that. such as, human trafficking and so on. So thank you for that reminder as well. And, the biggest thing I got out of your share was everything you just said. The 3 affirmations you gave yourself, man, I think is so important for me. I get up during the day, several points in the day, and I'll look in the mirror and I'll tell myself how much I love myself, how much I'm worthy of love, how much I'm a good person and a good father. And those affirmations like that are so important. So really happy for you and good for you that you were able to come to that realization. So thank you again, brother, for sharing.
And just because I hadn't announced it earlier, if you'd like to share and are willing to be recorded, please use the raise hand feature. Next up, we have MJ.
Hey, Rye, I just wanted to say you did such an amazing job. It was so honest, and your humility shone through and shone through. I don't know, but it definitely came through. And you make me really proud to be a part of this program. And it just lifts the heart and the spirit to hear you share with such humility and honesty. And I support you, and I look up to you quite a bit. So that's all I have.
Next up is Chris C.
Hey, my name's Chris, and I'm a sex addict. And holy shit, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear because it's a podcast, but that was amazing. I am so encouraged by your story and your humility, your willingness to even let it be recorded so other people who aren't even here can get the benefit of the healing that has come about in your story. I mean, I'm blown away. I got emotional and started crying because I'm sitting here thinking I've got this brother who I get to know and share and hear his story. And I haven't done the shit that you've done. You haven't done the shit I've done. Who cares, dude? It's all just different flavors of ice cream, right? I mean, let's don't try to categorize our behaviors as one's worse or one's better or whatever. We get into that. We're just in a heap of trouble. And I am just so grateful to get to journey along with you in your story. And I mean, just touching, dude. I want to encourage you and tell you that, your higher power is doing some crazy good work in your life. And I am drawing encouragement from you today. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your story. Appreciate it.
Spencer?
Right. Man, so good. I can relate with so much of your story. I'm going to second somebody else's share, and what really stuck out to me was the affirmations at the end. The other thing that really stuck out was, working the program, working the steps, and constantly acting out, and just the fact that you chose to share that, because for me, I've tried so many other ways to recover. Like SAA kind of feels like the holy grail of recovery. That's just kind of how I feel about it, as far as my addiction goes. And so when I'm having trouble staying sober, it just feels really crappy. So I really appreciated that particular part of your share. And just, oh my God, dude, I'm really sorry for your loss. Of your former partner. That was wow. But you're sticking to it, and you're making true the idea of getting well no matter what, in any condition. So just the fact that you are able to do that is encouraging to me. And your wins, every day that you stay sober, and you get to share that, is that's a victory for everyone who gets to hear that. That's encouragement for everyone who gets to hear that. So thank you so much, man. Like I've never like I feel so charged. I feel so positive after that share. I know there was so much pain, but that's the first time I've ever gotten that kind of reaction after a first step. Man, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to pause the recording. All right, that is all the time we have for shares. If you did not get a chance to share and need to, please speak with someone after the meeting. It is now time to practice the seventh tradition, which states, each group should be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. There are no dues or fees for SAA, but we do have expenses. Are there any announcements?
Yes, I'm Jason and I'm a sex addict. And in addition to the seventh tradition links, which were just shared in the chat, I'm sharing information on the Sex Addicts Recovery podcast. Again, I am the host and producer for the Sex Addicts Recovery podcast for the San Francisco Bay Area Intergroup. The podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms. The website that is still in process is sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. It's got links to all the various places you can listen to the podcast. And we're also up on the Bay Area Sex Addicts Anonymous YouTube page, and I put that link there in the chat. My personal information is there. Email at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com if you want to get a hold of me. If any other groups that are listening right now want to record their meetings and share, you can do that and send me a file, and I'd be happy to put that up out there on the podcast. This will be episode number 26, which I'm hoping I'll have edited and up online tonight. I'm going camping tomorrow, so I'm going to try to get this done as soon as possible. Also in the chat, a quick plug for the Serenity on the Sound retreat coming up at the end of August, 27th through 29th on Zoom. And this is put on by the Puget Sound Intergroup. It was a fantastic thing, so I highly recommend that if you can. And that's all I have for now. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Thank you for your service, Jason. Would someone volunteer, or someone like to volunteer to select the reading for next week's meeting?
Hey, it's Langston here. I can do the reading for next week. What are the guidelines for that?
So just if you pick a reading from the Voices of Recovery or Answers in the Heart one of those days, or a section from the Green Book, the Big Book, or the 12 and 12.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I can do it next week.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks, Langston. Let's thank all those who make this meeting possible, especially our presenter and speaker, Rye, presenting his first step. Regarding sponsorship, sponsorship is an important tool of sobriety and recovery. For those looking for a sponsor, we suggest approaching or calling those whose recovery you relate to or admire to ask about their ability to sponsor. You may not be successful on your first inquiry, so be patient and remember, you are not alone. As a gentle reminder for all of us, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. What you heard was spoken in confidence and should be treated as confidential. Who you see here, what you hear here, let it stay here.
You're here.
Here.
They're here.
Whatever problems you have, there are those among us who have had them too. If you keep an open mind, you will find help. Let us talk to one another and reason things out, but let us not gossip or criticize each other. Instead, let the understanding, love, and peace of the program grow in each of us one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Rye, I have a request. Would you mind reading the promises for us?
Sure, be my honor. Promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We are suddenly realizing that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises?
We
think
not.
They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, where they will always materialize if we work for them.
Work.
Would everyone please unmute your microphones and join me in saying the we version of the Serenity Prayer.
God, grant us serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, wisdom to know the difference.
Coming back.
Work because you're worth it.
The meeting is complete, and now is the time for asking questions and fellowship.
I hope everyone enjoyed that. This was an amazing gift to be able to record during a meeting. I am totally grateful for our meeting allowing me to do the recording and allowing us to share this on the podcast. Like I had mentioned during my announcements there at the end, if other groups or people listening want to record their own meetings or interviews and send that over to me, I'd be happy to share that on the podcast. You can record files and send them to me with like a Dropbox link or something like that. And I would be happy to share that on a future episode. So another meeting that did record stuff that we may be using here on the podcast soon is the Bay Area has been doing a quarterly SAA/COSA speaker meeting. And COSA is a partner program for people whose lives have been affected by the actions of a sex addict. Last weekend, they had a recording of the speakers, and there is a possibility that I can get a hold of those recordings and post those. It sounded like they were willing to put that on the podcast, but I need to verify, and once I have the files, I can create an episode around that. So in the future here, I've got quite a few new requests for people to be guests on the podcast, and I'm excited about that, working out details. Trying to coordinate with everyone is a little bit difficult, especially I got a listener in the UK. We're going to try to record that on a weekend sometime, probably in September. So excited about that. But you can always get a hold of me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com if you want to inquire about being a guest on the podcast. And if you have general feedback, things that you would like me to share on the podcast, about the podcast, about specific episodes, or things that you would like to see covered, you can email us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. So with that, I think that's all that I want to record for this week, so I can get the episode uploaded before I head out camping. I'm so grateful that you were able to join us here on this episode. And like we said at the end of our meeting, keep coming back. It works. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.